When I despair of politics and government in my country, I go to Gonzales. Gonzales is a tiny town, less than 9,000 people, in the Salinas Valley, where Californians and the migrant farm workers we employ grow lettuce and other green vegetables. Gonzales' households make less money, have less education on average than the rest of California and the United States. And Gonzales is geographically isolated, without any other town or settlement within 10 miles in any direction. But Gonzales is a wonderful place. Why? Because it is a true democracy. Democracy, after all, boils down to 4 words: everyday people governing themselves. And everyday people govern Gonzales. The city government grants wide powers to citizens to decide things for themselves. And citizens have used that democratic power to solve real problems, to bring clean energy to town via 2 giant windmills, to attract new food processing businesses, to open health clinics, to create a remarkable system of community philanthropy, to secure internet broadband, to achieve a 100% COVID vaccination rate, and to do much better by Gonzales' children. Indeed, its children actually govern themselves in Gonzales through a youth city council that writes laws and devises the town's award-winning policies on mental health and police-community relations. Gonzales is so democratic that its elections can be an afterthought. Election day is just one day after all. Democracy is every day. And democracy, when it is exercised at the local level, has real power to save not just our local communities, but our planet. I wish more people here in California, in the US, and around the world thought about democracy like they think about it in Gonzales. I am a career journalist who writes about democracy all over the world. I'm also a 4th-generation Californian, very proud of it. My father's family were U.S. Navy personnel, teachers, missionaries who arrived in the city of Long Beach in Los Angeles County more than a century ago, after stints in Virginia and Hawaii and China. My mom's family were Dust Bowl refugees from Oklahoma who walked and drove here before World War II, settling in the orange groves of San Bernardino County, 90 miles east of Los Angeles. Both sides of the family were Democrats, supporters of FDR's New Deal. Neither my ancestors nor I had ever seen a California Democrat win a major party nomination for president in this country. It's because it hadn't happened until this summer with Kamala Harris, a native of Oakland who rose to prominence in San Francisco and now lives here in Los Angeles. Joy is Harris's favorite word these days. And gosh, I wish I could tell you that I shared her joy about this American election and the possibility of a California president whose identity would make her a historical figure. But I don't. I feel frustration, dread, fear. Why? For many reasons. First, because political violence is mounting in our country against elections administrators, against elected officials, against the regular people who volunteer at and come to the polls. Second, because I know this close election will be followed by a fight between candidates over who is the real winner. And that fight is likely to trigger violence, much like we saw on January 6th, 2021 at the Capitol, or worse. But mostly I feel dread and fear because I know that this presidential election won't settle anything. In the US and around the world, elections are losing their democratic power to clarify, to heal, and to bring people together. Even when elections produce a government, and they don't always produce one, I'm looking at you, France and Belgium, that government often lacks legitimacy. Elections, in fact, can divide societies, exacerbate conflicts. International IDEA, the Intergovernmental Democracy and Election Organization based in Stockholm, found in its new report on global democracy that the losers, parties, candidates in elections, now refuse to accept the results in 1 out of every 5 elections worldwide. And those refusals can lead to violence and produce wars, both within and between countries. Why are we seeing this turn against elections? Because elections themselves aren't democracy, at least not anymore. Everyday people, like the people in Gonzales, have little power in our elections other than to vote. They can't guarantee their vote will mean much. The candidates and their agendas are determined by powerful interest groups and campaign donors. The measures that reach our ballots, the initiative proposals for laws or constitutional changes, which are common here in California, only come from those with millions of dollars necessary to fund them. And media is often controlled or owned by rich, powerful companies or individuals, routinely spread myths and disinformation about elections. People here and around the world long ago lost trust in politicians, lost faith in government. Now they are losing their belief in elections and perhaps in democracy itself. This belief can be restored, but first the problem needs to be better understood. One source of confusion is actually the global community of democracy advocates and their relentless and ill-placed focus on nations. Organizations supporting democracy routinely put out democracy rankings, but they're not really ranking democracy, that process of self-government by everyday people. They are ranking nation states. They make lists of nation states. They treat nation states as the natural unit of democracy. They rank the US against Canada and Indonesia, but they don't rank Gonzales against other small towns around the world. This creates an unbalanced picture. Yes, democracy is declining at the national level more than it is advancing, but democracy is also gaining rapidly at the local level in many places all over the world. The rankings mostly ignore these local gains. There's also a bigger problem. Nation states are faltering and failing in many ways, not just democratically. The nation state is proving itself a failure in our age. Nation states can't manage up. Nation states are just incapable of solving those big planetary problems, climate change, pollution, war, disease, that threaten the existence of humans and other living things on this planet. In fact, nation states often make planetary problems worse. At the same time, nation states can't manage down. Nation states do a poor job at supporting localities and regional governments. Leaders of nation states routinely preserve power by pitting local communities against each other or against migrants. Divide and conquer is the strategy. The truth is that it's not democracy that is really in decline. The nation state itself is in decline. And therein lies two massive opportunities for democracy. One opportunity is on that planetary level. Solving planetary problems will require planetary governance, planetary governments. Those governments will have to have the confidence of people around the world to have legitimacy. And that means that we need to create new, better, stronger democratic systems on the planetary level. At the same time, the decline of nation states puts more pressure on local governments. Our localities must represent us better, must provide us more agency and power. The world's localities must then foster better democratic governments. In other words, we will need more cities and towns like Gonzales. This will require more frequent and skilled use of democratic tools and new combinations. Might include fusing the smart direct democracy of Switzerland, the participatory budgeting invented in Brazil, and the deliberative citizen assemblies that have become popular in Belgium and Germany. But local governments can't embrace democracy just for democracy's sake. They need democracy in order to increase their own agency and effectiveness. Better democracy must combine with more and better technocrats, with technocracy, which can deliver complex solutions to difficult problems. Better democracy must also allow local governments to develop their own worldwide networks and structures that allow them to work together to help address those planetary problems. As I sit here in Los Angeles, my hometown, such a structure of localities seems a long way off. The American presidential campaign consists of two candidates who, for all their differences, share a strong preference to make Americans' monstrously powerful national government even more powerful. As the Democrats and Republicans battle for control of the White House and for the power to blow up the world, rhetoric here has turned routinely violent. Gunshots are being fired. When I think too hard about it, the dread and the despair fill my body. I need to feel better. I need to get back to Gonzales to visit a better democratic future.